No. But he's not always so good about taking still at 21. Not so good at always taking good notes. But when people call, he thinks he's going to remember, and then 2 days later, he goes, oh yeah, so call it. So remind Mark to write it down. This Mark, yeah, write it down. Write it down. He's much, much better than he used to be. And the next part just goes to the outcomes for the course. It doesn't affect your grade at all, but you guys are given a score at the end of the term on how well you collaborate and work with each other. It's part of the learning goals that the college has. It's the one that we have to be focusing on for the department. So you might find that at times when it looks like your group is a little dysfunctional or everybody's working together and you're sitting all by yourself, somebody coming over and talking with you about being part of a group and working with a group. It's one of the things that employers are telling us all the time is that people can't seem to come to work and then work with other people even if they don't get along with them. That and showing up on time and being able to pass the urine test is also. How we will evaluate in the course is you're going to have 3 exams, each one's worth 100 points, and the dates are listed there. And then you have 3 lab exams, each one's worth 50 points. I've got the first date for lunch to be 2.5. Then we'll also give you a separate lab syllabus, so you'll get that in the lab. You have some reading assignments and quizzes that you're going to do. So each week you'll have a reading assignment for the lecture portion of the course. When you don't have a reading assignment, it's usually the week before you have an exam. So you can focus a little bit more on your studying for exam at that point. The reading assignments will cover material from that will be coming up. So you'll be actually studying ahead. The idea for that is so that you will come in. For example, the reading assignment for this week is over chapter 4, and we'll be covering chapter 1 this week. We'll start chapter 4 next week. The idea is that you will come in the next week prepared because you've done the reading. And if you take a look at all the data and information, everything that you read tells us that the students who read before they come to class actually perform better and score better in the class. Even if they really didn't feel like they understood what they read, they still do better. So that's one of the ways that we can help you or encourage you to read. The other thing is by using reading assignments, I can make you read stuff that I know I won't be covering in class so that you can really take a look at it, because you can't cover every single thing that's in the chapter in lecture. It's impossible. The other thing it allows me to do is ask specific directed questions in areas that I know are a little bit challenging so that you have to focus and read on that a little bit more so you're more likely to learn this because we go through it. And then your lab quizzes, and Jen will talk about this or has talked to you about it. They will be for the material from the previous week. So when you come in on Tuesday of next week, you'll have a quiz over all of the body geography kind of stuff that you did this week. And we won't put a picture of a rat on there. There will be a rat on your lab practice. So does that make sense to everybody? And in your lab, you can work in pairs. In terms of the reading assignment, I really like cooperation if it's done, and it's not cooperation, it's cheating. So here's cooperation. You and your study group have finished the quiz. You now sit down and you start arguing about what the right answers are on the ones that you're disagreeing. And you talk your way through it, you go look in the book, and you figure out what the right answer. That's learning, and that's what part of the reading assignment, the reading assignment is all about, is learning. If you and your study partner divide the reading assignment up, and you do the first 10 questions, and that person does the next 10 questions, that is cheating, and you're not going to learn anything. And once again, the idea is to read and answer the questions so that you learn. Does that make sense? The one thing that we find from our students who move on is if they really try to learn, that they do very, very well. And I'll show you some letters from some people before we do class today who will talk about they were way ahead of the other people in their programs because of the way that we have, I think, we set up our expectations. So if you're here to learn, that works really well. If you're here for short-term memory to get a grade, that might get you through the course, but ultimately you're going to be in the program, it's going to expect you to know something, and then you're toast. They're just going to go, well, we don't care that you got an A in all the AMPs, you don't know ability spot. And guess what? You just failed pathophysiology. Pretty tough to know pathophysiology if you don't know the normal physiology before you start. So, and what we want to do is make sure we learn the material. Does that make sense? Okay. The next part just talks about is the whole thing for grades. So 300 points for lecture exams, 150 for lab. Lab quiz is about 70 points. The reading assignment is about 35 points. You have an article assignment, and it's really not an article, but when we get to the osseous tissue, you'll actually be given a kind of a scenario for a lady. It's actually a real person, and some data for her bone density test, and then you'll be given 4 options that her doctor recommends that she consider, and then you're going to be her friend who's in A&P, and you're going to help her make a decision by going out and evaluating her options and taking a look at her H&P and kind of making some recommendations to her. Does that make sense? And we'll talk about that more when we get there.
Is there a due date for that set?
Not yet. It depends on when we get to osseous tissue and when I hand it out. So it's usually someplace we hand it out, someplace around the 5th or 6th week. We'll give you 2 or 3 weeks to work on it. Attendance and drop policy. So this is a challenging course. So if you just show up wherever you want to, that's probably not going to mean that you're going to learn much. You probably won't do very well. And so what we find is people who do show up regularly and pay attention and are prepared, have a better chance of success. So to encourage you, if you show up every single day, you'll get 10 points of extra credit for every perfect attendance in both lecture and lab. So you're actually being given extra credit for something that you should be doing anyway, which is coming to class every day. There are some exceptions for being absent, things like I think are listed in here: citizenship and jury duty, emergency kinds of things, that kind of stuff. So funerals and those kinds of things. And unless you have a family that is divorced a lot, you're only going to have 2 pairs of grandparents. So when you come up telling your grandmother has died for the 6th time, then you're going to lose your extra credit. So office hours are 9:30 to 11 on Monday, Wednesday, 11 to 12 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and so you guys are all night students. So most of the time I can be here before class, or I can hang around after class depending on when your lab is. And so if these times don't work for you, just let me know if we need to get together. We can arrange some other times to do that. Required materials for this class, this book right here is the Martini book. It costs quite a bit of money. But you won't be buying another book. So what you need to do is take the cost and divide it by 3, and then you'll feel a lot better. So it only costs you like $90 to start. And same thing for your lab book. You won't be buying another lab book. So you just bought all the books for the entire sequence. So maybe that'll make you feel a little better. The recommended materials is a whole list of stuff that's here. The only thing I really say about that one is don't buy anything until you started the course, and then go take a look at the recommended materials and see if you're going to like it. The dictionary word parts in combining forms, you actually have at the back of your book a bunch of prefixes and suffixes and root words that Martini's already put there. When you do your reading, one of the reasons we like Martini is he breaks hard words down into their component parts, and that's basically what that little dictionary book does. So you may have accomplished that just by having your textbook, and you'll save you some money. So everybody talks about the coloring book. Oh, I'll go buy the coloring book. The coloring book does not work unless you read in color. If you're not going to read in color, then don't buy the coloring book. If you're not a kinesthetic learner or a tactile learner, probably you don't want to buy the coloring book either, because all you'll be doing is creating a bunch of colorful pictures. So it'll take you time, and you have to pay for the book. And you could have gone to Google Images and got a bunch of pictures for free. If that's all you want. Now, if you're kinesthetic tactile, that means you learn by moving and touching, and the coloring book then becomes important, because if you're coloring a hand, then it says color the pisiform bone, and then you get out your yellow pencil and you'll color on the pisiform, but the reading and the movement helps ingrain the memory in your head. So for those kinds of folks, that will work well. So if you, I'm kind of a kinesthetic learner, so if you watch me study, I used to do circles in the room while I read my notes out loud to myself. And so if you do that, the coloring book might work for you. Other than that, I wouldn't waste my money. Alright. Non-recommended materials, it's a whole big, gigantic list of stuff that you should bring here. And one of the things that we really would like you to leave at home or turn off are cell phones and electronic devices. And so it says, any visible electronic device will result in failing grade for an exam without an exam. If your phone goes off during any exam, there'll be a 10%, oh, excuse me, I didn't change that for you, sorry. You don't have a 10%. Oh, no, we did leave that one. We were talking about changes. So you're going to have a deduction on your exam grade. We did leave that in. We were talking about failings, but we changed our minds. That's what it's up. If the phone goes off, rings or vibrates so that I can hear it in class, it's an automatic 5-point pop quiz. And it's not like I'll tell you what we're going to be over and we'll do it next week. You'll be at that point. We will have a big pop quiz. Oh, the entire class.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you should encourage each other to turn your phones off.
Fine, I have one too.
And it says texting in class will result in your immediate exclusion from lecture or lab. So if you pull that little guy out and you're playing with it, I'm just going to ask you to leave class. And I got a conundrum yesterday because one of my students had his phone out, but he had NerdWiz on it, and he was following the plexus that we were doing the lab. And so I asked him what he was doing. He goes, "Oh, cool app." And it turned out it only had half the plexus, so it really wasn't that cool of an app. And he had exactly the same stuff that was in the book, but because it was electronic and on his phone, it was really cool. So that case, showed me what he was doing this thing. Now, it's nighttime, and some of you probably have, at least this kind of happens to me sometimes. Every once in a while, I get a midwife in here, and so if that's the case, and I have your phone on so you can have a baby, just let me know. Some of you might be in here, and you might have a kid or two at home, and really you don't need a babysitter because they're kind of on that bubble age, or maybe they're way past the bubble age, but it's one of those kinds of kids. And so, if that's the case, and you really need to have it on for that reason, then let me know. And if it goes off, we won't have a problem. And if you do tell me that you have to have it on and it goes off, and I start to give you a pop quiz, please remind me that you had given me something in writing, because I keep them in my folder. Last term, somebody told me they had a special reason towards the end of the term. They didn't put it in writing. I forgot. I gave everybody a pop quiz, and just last question, and I looked at them and said, "This is the same thing that you talked to me about last week, isn't it?" And they went, "Uh-huh." And I went, "Oh, that sucks." So I told everybody they didn't have to do the pop quiz. They all had. So I just threw it away. It's your responsibility to know stuff about the school and all that. That's what the next part says. If you have a disability, you've got to let me know this week so I can help to create the accommodation that you need. Some of this disclaimer that just says if I need to change stuff, I have the right to do that. And so that's all that is. Classroom department, I'm not going to go through all this, so please read it because it tells you what your behavior should be like. A couple things that I've got peace about. One is don't use profanity in lecture or lab. The second is once class starts and I'm talking, do not walk up to the front of the room and hand something in. Do not walk up to the front of the room to pick something up that I've handed out. You are not the center of the universe. You're just the center of your universe. And there are 40-something people in here who are now all irritated because you just disrupted the class. And it's very likely that I'll stop and do this. The whole way. Does that make sense? So once we start, with a lot of information, all those distractions slow us down, and we really need to get through everything. Okay. Studying, there's a whole list of things to help you study here. So you can go through and take a look at those. A couple things that I really emphasize is read, number one. If you're not sure how to read effectively, I've got a little thing on my webpage that talks about reading. I would also suggest that you look up SQ3R on the internet. It's a whole reading program about surveying and how to read your books so that you can really get a lot out of it when you read it the first time. So that might be something to take a look at. Study all the time. Don't study 3 days before the test, because you'll only get that in short-term memory. It lasts about 2 weeks, it's going to disappear, and this course is going to build on itself. And so if you're using short-term memory, you're going to have a lot of stuff that gets lost. So you don't want to do that. Study groups are really, really, really helpful. And so those are really good things to kind of put together. And for some of you, if you're driving a distance to get to class, and there's 2 or 3 of you in the car, that is an excellent time to do study sessions because you've got a built-in study group already. So those are just some of the kind of suggestions that I would give to you. And then I have a whole list of different things here. Some of them are helpful sites for studying and reading. Some of them are review sites for this class that are also listed on here. And then on the next part on the schedule, you can see on the 4th week, 8th week, and 11th week, we have exams for the course. We have reading assignments, we deal with those in just a little bit, and you can kind of see the topics. So this week, today, we're just barely going to be going on chapter 1, because some other stuff we need to kind of go through, but hopefully we'll start on our orientation chapter, body geography and that stuff. We'll finish that up on Thursday, and then we'll start histology. Then we do the integumentary system, and then you have exam. And then the next whole block of time is totally spent on bone tissue and the parts of the skeleton and the names of all the bones and all the different parts that are there. And then the last part will be muscle tissue and neurophysiology. And at this point, this last part of the term, we'll finally start to introduce some physiology into the course. Up to that point, it's almost straight anatomy. And so anatomy is really primarily about the memorization, what I call memorization and regurgitation. This bone, this is the femur, right? What's this?
Table.
That's a table. So somewhere somebody told you it was a table, you learned it was a table, and for the rest of your life this is a table, right? That's all anatomy is. This is a table, this is a femur. And so you just got to sit down and spend time and learn the names and parts of the bone. So there's no rocket science to that. It's really about time. And so that becomes kind of a critical issue for most of you. Do you have enough time to learn all of that? All right. And if you want to get a peek at the muscles and the bones that you need to know for the class, you can go to my website and take a look at it. Later, I'll actually ask you to either go print it off or I'll print it all off for you, but you don't need to have it right away. Now, if you're really organized, and you really kind of want to get this class going, what you might think about doing is next week pulling off and running off that bone list, because that's on the second test. The muscle list is on the third test. And you can count how many bones that there are and bone parts. And you can say, if I start now, I only have to learn like 2 or 3 a day. If I wait till after the first test, I have to learn 7 a day or whatever it is. And you might think, you could learn 2 a day now, then 7 a day later. Does that make sense? Okay.
What's your website?
Usually what I do is just go to the science department, click on my name. So it's learn rhodecc.edu /science/J Van Brunt, just the letter J, and then the / again, PI 231. Okay.
Can you go through Angel?
What?
Can you just go through Angel with that?
Probably can't go through Angel, you don't have an Angel page for this. So what I do is just go where it says departments. I click on more links, I click on science, and I click on my name. And that's a lot easier. I can do that faster than I can type this. Are we okay so far? All right. In your book, your textbook, you should have gotten a CD. And the CD says the Interactive Physiology Suite. Did everybody see that in the book? Okay. So what I did is in your syllabus, when we have the topics for that CD will help you. I put a little superscript there, a little 1. Did everybody see that? And then you also see a 2 down the bottom. So that's to tell you that at that point, you should get that CD out, go to the muscle part of it, and start looking at all the little video clips that are in there. The stuff that the publishers put together is really great. It's really, really good. And Martini's book does a nice job with pictures, so that's something you should focus on when you read this book, is look at the pictures and read the descriptions. But they did a really nice job taking things that are step-by-step in the book and actually making it live action. So if you can't create a mental model for yourself of what's going on, this will help create that mental model in that picture for you. So it's a physiology CD, so it doesn't have topics until we get to physiology. So that starts with muscles and nerves. Does that make sense?
I'm not quite sure if you mentioned this, I have been paying attention. The reading assignments that were given, when are they due? A week from the day they're given?
We're going to talk about that in just a second.
Oh.
So, yeah, you have been listening because I didn't cover it yet. And then you have this sheet right here, and this is where you keep your grades. So, I'm not going to be posting grades on a website. I'm not going to keep an Excel spreadsheet, but it's your grade, so you need to be responsible for it. Also, if you keep this up to date, if you wake up at 3 in the morning, you don't have to worry about trying to go to a website and see what your grade is. You can just pick the sheet up, recalculate it, go, still got an A, and then you go right back to sleep. So,
Is there a website that you can go to throughout the term to check our grades?
no, that's what I was saying. It's not my grade, it's your grade. So if you want to calculate it, know what you are, it's your responsibility. And the reason I do that, you'll see a sign from my office that says, I don't give grades, you earn them. It's like, this drives me nuts. So people walk up and go, well, what grade do I have? Or what grade did you give me? I gave you whatever you earned. And so keep track of your own grade, and that way you'll always be on top of it. You won't be dependent on these, and you'll be a little more aware of what's going on. I know I'm a little harsh. Are we okay so far? Okay, reading assignments. Our goal, if we can, is to get to a point where we have everybody doing their reading assignments on a website that's actually created by the publisher. And if you take a math class, some of the math classes use it. It's called MyLabs. And one of the problems we've been running into is just there seem to be some issues with students being able to log on. So I'm going to give you the instructions on how to log on, and I'll take you through a little PowerPoint here. And then we'll talk about how we're going to deal with the pitfall.
Can you say the online is the people you turn off when you sign and bring it up to?
Yeah, that's sit down there. All right, so what happens is the way this is set up, if they didn't write this term, is you guys have already been loaded in so that the site actually knows that you're in class. And then what you have to do is you have to go in and sign up. So you have to go to this address right here, so rogueccmylabsplus.com. And then what will happen is you should see some different courses that are under MyLab. So our course is BI 231, and so you'll have to click on that one and to get into the class. This is what you should see here. And so you've got a name and a password here. So this is where it kind of got hung up last term. The name, the username, and the password that you use under RCC, we just have the username. And what happens with MyLabs is you have to put RCC and then your username. So be careful about that. If it doesn't like it, you'll do your username and password like you normally log on. Then put RCC in front of your username and see if it will take it.
It's RCC capital lowercase.
I'm not sure if it matters, usually when I have done it, if I had to do that, I had the same problem, is I have to do it uppercase, or I've done it uppercase, I've never done it lowercase.
And do you log in like you're gonna log into Angel, or like you're gonna log into Computer Lab?
Like you get your RCC login,
Yeah.
so you have a RCC name that you put in, like if you're gonna go schedule courses or something like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So you're using student ID number? I use my student ID number, but.
Okay, so use your student ID number, that's what I use online. So what happens is not everybody uses their ID number. Now, I think it's changed everybody's ID number, that's just what the course also. So this is where we got hung up last year, is people were using so many different things that then they're just going on. So I have an alternative for that, so we're okay. And so you get logged in and you select your course, once again, you'll be at 231, and then you have to agree that you're going to follow their licensing, like you're really going to publish this and do something with it. And then there'll say enrollment options. So here's the other part that gets a little bit odd for us. So in your book, you should have had a little card, and that card came with an access code. Okay, so let's see something going like this. So here's the if you bought the book new, that card should have come with the book. You have an access code. So that's what they're saying right here, is that you got an access code. You click on that, you move on to the next one. They're going to ask you to put in the code. If you bought your book used, if you bought your book last year, the year before, and coming back, it's a take 231 or whatever it might be, you won't have an access code. And so what it'll ask you to do then is to buy some kind of access code. So here's what we'll need, and this is the reason we're going to do this a little bit different from this, is I'll need probably by Thursday for you to give me your name if you don't have an access code. Does that make sense? And so we'll probably on Thursday just have a sign-in sheet. And then what the publisher and we're trying to do right now is to have them give us some free access codes because we're in kind of a weird spot where not all of our books have been moved over to the My Plus cards, and we have one that just says My MEP, and so there's some kind of we haven't got all the books. So if that happens, we're trying to work out what is the cost and publishers so that they would work with us. So this one.
How long do the access codes work? Because I have one from last term. So do you know how long?
Yeah, I think they're supposed to last for a year or 4 quarters, something like that. So it should still work.
Until June. So I did just the other day, I had to do a temporary access code, and it's good until June.
Okay.
I did one for statistics. Would it matter if it's a different subject?
You know, I don't know. You can go in and
Yes, it's completely different.
is that right?
Yeah, I still log in, I did it for Math 65, Math 95, same thing, we had to log in through My Labs. And then this is not actually My Labs, this is Pearson. So this is, it's different.
It actually,
It didn't recognize that I had access to My Labs from my previous 2 math courses. This gave me something completely different, I had to put in a temporary code, and it told me it was only good to June.
okay, and that's one of the reasons we're doing it. That's you guys are the last term to do this, and it doesn't work out this soon. And so this is where you enter in your access code. And then if you don't have one, it tells you that you can buy one. You're not going to buy one, right? We're going to try to work so you don't buy one.
They're like $100 if you don't have them. It's like $100 if you
No,
don't
it's
have
not. That's the other thing that I talked to the rep a few weeks ago.
Oh.
I'm pretty curious about is if you read carefully, the access code costs $50 or $55, and then the ebook costs another $50 or $55. And when you read, if you don't read carefully, they're telling you the code and the ebook at the same time. You have to go in and carefully go to a different page where you can just buy the code. So don't pay $100 for it for sure. because you just want to look, but you probably don't have to use that. Does that make sense? And then it says in terms of the course. Now, you can also get a, that's what you're talking about, a temporary access code, and then the temporary access code will allow you to have access for a certain amount of time. And so if you have really big trouble, get the temporary one, and then contact the technical support people. And they were really good last year. Finally, the technical support people got so upset that they gave us a generic code that everybody could use. It was costing a bunch of money. Does that make sense? All right, so you also have a sheet that tells you how to do that. And because I don't trust you guys, we also have a handout. So this is your quiz. So this is what we would like for you to do. Is we would like for you to actually put the answers to the quiz into the MyLabs Plus website. But I don't trust that some of them are going to be able to get this working in the next week. So if you can't get it put in, then you could just hand it in and accomplish exactly the same thing. The question was, can you print these off? Yes, you can, and but I wouldn't. And then I'll tell you how. If you go into this website, what I was looking at the other day is to print these off, it was forcing me to print off every question at a time. Because there's 20 questions, that's 20 pages of paper, and the question only takes up that much room. So I was really angry with it. So I went in, and there's some real weird formatting stuff, but I was able to do some copy and paste and play with it, and I moved the whole quiz over to a Word document, and then I posted it on my webpage. And then I went to open it up, and then it wouldn't open up tonight, and it opened up the other day, so I'm not sure which one, I'll fix that. But on the webpage, it'll say reading assignments, and then you can go in and open that up, and it'll connect you to this reading assignment, and I'll do that each week. So if we do get this thing working and you'd rather do them on paper, and once you've done it, just go in and answer them real quickly on the website, you can still print one off. It'll be available for you to do that.
So regardless, you have to enter it.
Well, if you can get access, we want them entered online. So I'm going to explain the reason why. If you're not really familiar with what's going on in kind of funding for education, there isn't enough money, and so one of the things that they're thinking is a little peculiar in my mind. But if you can prove that your students are successful in their learning, they'll give you money. If your students aren't successful and aren't performing well, you'll get less money. Well, that's a good thing, because you think if you weren't doing well, you'd give them more money to help people to do well. But it's actually to show that students are achieving what students want to achieve in terms of their progressing through their education. So, and also for accreditation, which is the body that says that we're an accredited college, so you can transfer to any accredited college and they'll accept it in this credit. So that they're also requiring that their question is, how do you know that the students know what you think they know? And so what we do with this is when you do these reading assignments, it tabulates every one of you which question you missed. And then at the end of like this week, I can go in and I'll do the entire spreadsheet. Nobody's names or anything are on it. So they'll tell me the question, what the learning objective is, and how many people got it right, and how many people got it wrong. And so we have some goals for each question and how many people should get it right, what percentage of people should get it right and wrong. And so if we tabulate all this, then when the accreditation people come or the state people come and say, can you prove you deserve your funding? We can go, yes, look at all our students are doing really well on these assignments. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's the reason we're trying to do it online. We have an alternate way to not do it online like this. It's just a little bit more cumbersome, but we're kind of the mind, if this doesn't work this time around, that I'd rather do the extra work and just you guys can totally ignore going along. There we go. Does that make sense? So you're kind of the beta group this term, and if we get a couple weeks into this and this whole thing becomes very frustrated and you can't get on and you're just really upset about it, then we just won't be doing quizzes like this. You do want to, however, somehow get online. So the MyLabs Plus is like the old Mastering A&P. This is your access to the publisher's website that has all the good study stuff and the little bio clips and all those kinds of things, the quizzes, so you can take and evaluate how well you learned and all of that. That's on the same website too. Okay.
Does it give you a grade right away?
Yeah, once you turn it in, it gives you, tells you how you did right away.
Did I do a week from today,
Yeah, since you have a paper one, this one's going to be due a week from today.
Okay.
But I left the first assignment open on the MyLabs for 2 weeks, so that you can kind of still fiddle with it and that kind of stuff. Because it's still like the data you have. Does that make sense? Okay, that was spent a lot of time over this. Hopefully, we don't have to do that. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And one of them's oriental. Oriental course, and it's great.
Okay. Real quickly, we're going to talk about the course a little bit. So, here's the deal. First, how many of you are going into nursing? That's how many people are going into respiratory therapy? How many people are doing imaging? Okay, 1. How many people are doing physical therapy? 1. What's everybody else doing? How many people are going to be doctors? Okay, 2. Okay. Veterinarians? Massage therapy? You only need to do 121 and 122 for that. Okay, I just want to make sure. 9th week of this term, remember that. Okay. So when you're mad at me, it wasn't my fault. I let you know. All right. Anything else that we didn't?
dental hygiene?
Oh, dental. I always forget that. How many people are doing dental hygiene? Just 1 person. Okay. So for some of you, you've been told that your program requires all A's to get in. So since most of you are nursing and you're the ones who've been given that propaganda, that's really not true. But if you do want an A, dental hygiene is one of the more competitive programs, so grades are kind of important there. So if you do want the A, you've got to learn the material so that you'll do well on the evaluation tools. So this is what you're seeing up here, and we're going to talk about this. Now you're seeing your responsibilities and learning and some of that kind of stuff to help you get going here. This is called Bloom's Taxonomy. And this kind of shows the level of our learning. And so what happens is the very top level, it says remembering and understanding. Those are what we call really concrete sort of learning concepts. And so in this case, especially with remembering, that's really low order sort of learning. That structure over there was called a, and this is a femur, and that's where we're at. Remember, we just remember the name. So what will happen is a lot of students want to live here. I'll just remember everything in the book. I'll memorize it, and then I'll be okay. Except for you have to be able to apply information, and you have to use that information in new context. And so that's down in here, in Bloom's taxonomy of learning. So the first thing you have to do is get over the idea that I'm just going to memorize stuff. We need to memorize stuff, but we also need to see connections, and we also have to start creating this idea of big picture. I'm studying the body with 12 different systems, and they're all interconnected, and I just can't memorize junk from one system and then throw it out because I'm going to move on to the next system. You've got to put them all together. Does that make sense? And that requires us to move down here. So that's where we're going to have to kind of, from other classes, sometimes like a history class, sometimes we memorize a lot of dates and stuff. So we're going to have to get past memorizing and move down into this direction. Right? So this other thing that you're seeing up here is something that I didn't even know was around until a few years ago. And it deals with kind of where we are in terms of our learning and how aware we are of our learning. And I actually saw this the first time when I was up in Fort Alice a few years ago for my son's wedding, and I was staying in a motel in Oregon State. Has a television station. This guy was from the University of Washington. He was a surgeon, and he was talking about how stupid beginning surgeons are because they can't tie knots. And he said, they've been through medical school and some other kinds of really cool things, and they think they're pretty cool and hot stuff. And then they walk in, and he just tears them apart because they can't do a suture and tie the suture off like in a nice knot, and they're not screwing it all up. And so he was talking about how he has to teach these guys. But the first thing he has to do is make them understand that just because they got through medical school, they're really not as smart as they thought they were. And so these are kind of the areas that we have in terms of our competence and our consciousness. So we can be consciously incompetent, consciously competent, unconsciously incompetent, and unconsciously competent. And so we'll talk about those really quick. So if you're unconsciously incompetent or unconsciously competent, that means that you don't know stuff and you don't know that you don't know stuff. All right? So if we took a look and I said, and some of you may know this, what's the thermoregulating structure inside your brain? Some of you knew the hypothalamus, but some of you are going, huh? And so if we're unconsciously incompetent, it means that we just don't know stuff and we don't know that we know it. Now everybody here, as soon as I asked that question, you realize if you didn't know it, that I don't know it. So you were at least consciously incompetent at that point. So you moved up a step. And so that's kind of where we're all at right now. We got a big, gigantic book, and most of it we don't know much about. Okay? So what we want to do is our next step is to move into conscious incompetence. So now that we know it's the hypothalamus, that's sort of where we're at. We know it's a thermoregulator. We might not be sure what thermo means, and we have no clue probably how it does what it does and who it's talking to in order to make it all happen. But at least we're aware of that, which would then probably send us off to the internet most of the time, because we could type in hypothalamus, thermoregulation, and we could start reading about it. And once we started reading about it, then what would happen is we'd no longer be incompetent, right? We would become competent. And so that's going to be our goal, is to move from being unconsciously incompetent to being consciously competent. And so this is conscious competence. And it says becoming consciously competent often takes a while, time, as you steadily learn about the new area, either through experience or more formal learning. The process anyway fits. It starts as you learn, forget, plateau, and start anew. So there's going to be some frustrations along the way. The more complex your idea, the less talent you have for it, the longer this will take. And the good news is that many people have achieved remarkable feats of learning through sheer persistence. So that's that, perseverance kind of thing that goes on. Right? Perspiration versus inspiration. Are we okay? All right, now, This is the part that really got me excited when this guy was talking, because I've been teaching for A&P for a really long time, and I have these people who work in hospitals, and they come back and they tell me, I don't know why I need this class, I'm going to be a nurse, and I know for sure, because I've been told by other nurses that I'm never going to use my A&P. So this is a waste of my time, it's a waste of my money, and I don't know why I have to be there. And I always say, okay, great. So apparently, there were some folks out there that aren't using their A&P. So my son's a nurse, and his wife is a nurse, and they're good nurses. And so I talked to them, and I said, I don't get all of this. And you guys talk about the A&P that you use all the time. I have a lifelong friend who's in a few years will retire from nursing, who says that's the most important class she ever took, was A&P. She uses it every day. And I said, I don't understand why my students are being told that. And my son said, well, it's kind of like this, guys. Like everywhere that you've worked, you got people that are really good at what they do and people that aren't. And so the people that aren't, they know that they go to the computer that the patient's bed, and they hit the little button, and all the stuff comes up, and they know they get this medicine at this time, and that's all they know. He said they can read that, and if you have a problem or anything goes wrong, he said they're usually the ones you don't want to have around, because they'll have to go ask somebody else, because they won't know anything except what they're told on that screen. He said, and then I've got these people I work with, the people who taught me, and they just, their brains work all the time, and they go through stuff, and they come up with really cool ideas to solve a unique situation for a patient. And he said, they're using their A&P like crazy, but I bet if you talked to them and said, did you know that you just used 13 things from your A&P class? They would all look at you and go, huh? Because they are unconsciously competent. They know what they know, and they know it so well that they use it without thinking about what they're doing. It's just there. And those are the people that you want to have around when something's going wrong. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is where we can live for a really long time, because we can be competent at what we do, and we can be able to figure things out. But what we'd really like to be is here. The problem is you can't ever stay here totally, because new things are always coming along. So even if you're unconsciously competent and really good at what you do, something new will come along, and then at that point you are unconsciously incompetent. And then you see it in the American Journal of Nursing, and you go, wow, I didn't know that was there. And now we're consciously incompetent, and we have to move back up through the whole thing so we can be unconsciously competent. Make sense?
Yeah.
Is it going to be a lot of work? Okay, so if you can tell me where education is really, really easy, right, and it's never hard work, and then show that to me in writing, and I'll believe it. But until then, all I know about learning is it takes a lot of time, and it's a lot of hard work to do it. But we can get to here if we really work hard. All right? Okay. So, this is Miller's Pyramid of Assessing Clinical Competence, and this is actually one of the things that you guys are kind of interested in, is the more you go up, the more competent you are in all the clinical situations and the kind of things that you do. So you have some people who just know, and then if you just know stuff but you can't do anything with it, you're kind of screwed, because you're not any help in the hospital. So the next level we need to be is here, where I know how, so I can actually do something. But when I'm really good at it is when I can show somebody else how to do it. Does that make sense? And then I'm really good when I'm the guy who's in charge and I can just do it. And so I love those programs where the people come in with the ER, because you got that guy that's sparking off orders like crazy. And you're like, man, how does he know to do all of that? That's because he lives here. His whole life is action. People come in, 14 gunshot wounds, 3 stab wounds, and a hangnail. And he's got to figure out how to deal with all of it. Are we okay? And so, how do I get a good grade if I'm working real hard doing all this? So first, study to learn. If you know the material, you'll pass the test. If you study to pass the test, you're going to be trying to guess what I'm going to put on the test. You won't do well on the test. So study to learn. Be realistic. This one is tough for people to take. So everybody wants an A. Some of you will get a B, and it'll actually be like an A++. And so here's why. There's people in here who are going to get an A, And this is all they do. This class is their class, this is their life, they study 8, 10 hours a day, they should get an A. Some of you work 30 hours a week, you're a single parent, you've got 3 kids, one of your relatives has a terminal illness, your dog just had puppies, your car is not dependable, and all these things are going on, and you're taking A and P and 2 other classes on top of it. And then your theory is, well, I should be perfect in all things, and I should be able to get an A, and I can be a perfect mom, and I can be a perfect helper to my relative, and I can help this mother dog who's going to have to feed the puppies late at night because she can't seem to produce enough milk. And I'll make my kids wonderful children, and they'll all be great students and terrific athletes. Are we okay? Yeah, so be realistic. It's sometimes when you get the B, that's really equivalent to an A++. Can she manage to get that with all the other stuff going on? Make sense? If you can't beat yourself up. If you do, it just creates a real negative attitude, and then you don't do as well. So have a positive attitude. And a positive attitude is important. If you come in here and say, this material is too hard, you're covering too much, it's going too fast, this is unrealistic, nobody can learn all this material, and you're just telling yourself, I can't. And you're right. You can't. If you tell yourself you can't, you can't. And I taught at 4 different colleges in 3 different states, and A&P looks exactly the same in all of them. So there's like 100,000 students right now in an A&P classroom, all as miserable as you are. So at least take solace in that. And they're doing the same thing you are. Try to reduce stress as possible. Stress hormones that build up. Short term, they help with cognitive ability. Long term, if they stay there a long time, they actually impair cognitive ability. So they get released in a fight, flight, or fear situation so that your brain will work really hard and figure out what's going on. But over long term, if you stay stressed out the whole time, those same hormones interfere with your brain's ability to learn and things. So try to reduce your stress. Read productively. And if you're buying me, we can talk about sometime how to that system I talked about. Manage your times. You have class time, study time, handy time. I used to carry 3x5 cards. If I was standing in line for anything, I went into my pocket, pulled out the 3x5 cards, and I'm going through my cards. So if you go to Walmart at any given time, and you get in line, you're going to be there 20 minutes. It doesn't matter. I mean, if there's 2 people in line, one of those people will have a purchase order for someplace nobody's heard of, and you're still going to have to stand in line for 20 minutes. So there's 20 minutes of studying right there. And if you're just standing there looking about the 2-headed baby that J-Lo just had on the magazine rack, that's wasted time. Are we okay? Okay. So create a support system. Right now, go talk to your family and friends and those kinds of folks and tell them what AFP is going to be like. And then, create a support system that's going to be positive for you. And then you have to prioritize. So, and this is really, I think, important also. So I always tell everybody my priorities so you know right off the bat. So priority number 1 is God. Priority number 2 for me is family, and I go slash. And then those friends that are actually part of your family, they're no longer just friends. You can't tell the difference between that person and your brother or sister. So those are the second people. And then you guys are third on my list. And so then my job is one of those things to go farther down. So there might be times when you'll say, well, I get this back, right away. No. Because I'm going to go see my family this weekend, so you might not get it back right away. Because all my kids except one are important right now. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's my priority system. You have to figure out what yours is. I figured out a long time ago, family was going to take precedence over everything else. I thought it was going to be my job till I had a kid. And then I realized the most important thing I was ever going to do was be a parent. So my job started dropping down. I figured out that my job wasn't the same thing as my students, so the job kept going down. Does that make sense? All right, so figure out what your priority system is. Live by it. I will almost guarantee you, there might be some wacko in here, so I never say absolutely guarantee. But I will almost guarantee you, on your deathbed, if you're going to be an A and P, you will probably think, I wish I'd spent more time with my family. You probably won't say, I wish I'd spent more time on that BI 232 class. I could have gotten there. And that's not going to happen. All right? So have a good set of priorities. Who am I? I've been teaching for a really, really long time. I have a AA, a BS, a MA, and an MS, so like 4 college degrees. I have 4 teaching credentials and 1 administrative credential. And I taught in four different colleges in 3 different states and 2 different high schools. And so my education, I started where you were. I started at the community college. I left to go to a 4-year school, was there for 2 days, came back to community college for a 3rd year so I could really figure out what I wanted to do. And then I went away to 4-year schools and finally got all of those degrees. The last 2 degrees, the 2 master's degrees, I worked full-time as a teacher. I coached after school. I drove 72 miles one way at night to go get my first master's degree. Got that one. A year and a half later, decided I need to get a different one in a different area. And so I went back and did it all over again. And in the process of getting the second one, I also had kids. And I have 4 of those. So are we all right? I didn't come from a family that was rich at all. I didn't come from a family that encouraged me to go to school either. My mom, after I graduated from high school, hauled me around for an entire summer. She made me get in the car with her and go apply places so that I could get a job. And all the while I'm going, I'd really like to go to school. And so I went to school because I wanted to go to school, despite kind of what my parents' intentions were for me. And I grew up in a town kind of like Grants Pass. And when I talk about working, at one point my dad and I started a business when I was in college. I used to get up in the morning, go to school, be there at 7, go to school 7 to 8, go to work till about 4 or 4:35 in the afternoon, go home, get 7 to 8, go to school till 10 o'clock at night, go home and study, get back and repeat the whole process all over again. And so I get that life is sometimes just a pain in the butt, but you've got to persevere and get that and through. Does that make sense? So if you have problems, come see me. We'll look at how to manage time and do whatever. We can even cry together. I have peanuts. And we can have a sob fest, and we can talk about our miserable experiences in school. And then when we're all done, we're going to talk about solutions. Because if I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm no smarter than you. And if I can figure out how to do it, then you can too. One of the things I did have is a lot of nice people in every school that I was at, especially in high school, who saw something that I had that I didn't see and my parents didn't see, and that said, you know, this guy's really kind of bright, and he could go do something if he could just leave this little town and go to school. And so when I was at school, there was always people at college that were encouraging me. So if that's what you need, come see me, and we'll talk about how you can get through all of this. I am here to help, and I can't do anything about my size, passion, and presence. So I know that I'm big, and I know that I'm loud, and I know I get excited about what I do, you can tell. And I know that I talk really fast, and I've been told that because I'm really passionate and I get excited and I'm big, that sometimes I intimidate people. All I can tell you is, get over it. My wife always says, man, it's too bad people can't associate size of body and size of heart. I really want you to be successful. My dream is that your dreams come true. People did that for me, so that's what I want for you. It doesn't mean that I'm going to enable you. You're going to have to earn it, but certainly I will do what I can to help you. We'll have study sessions, we'll have weekend study sessions, we'll do the things we need to do to help you be successful, as long as you're doing your part also. Okay? And anything else you want to know? Okay.
How are you doing the A's in your class?
It depends on the class. Sometimes it's quite a few, and sometimes it's a handful. It just really depends on who the class is. And so there's no real percentage of how many people that should get A's because the makeup of each class is so different. But once again, I'm going to show you some stuff here in a little bit. You don't necessarily need an A. I had a student that's finishing up at OHSU who got 2 B's in an A. I had a student who got, so I'll tell you what weird is, what it is. It was purple loss, I don't know what it was going to tell. I had a student that was asked to give the speech as a graduate when you had your penny ceremony for nursing. And she was such a great student that they asked her to give the speech at that ceremony. And she got 2 B's and an A, and was an excellent nursing student. So A's don't always mean everything. And remember, it's your total GPA that gets you in those programs anyway, so I just won't tell you. So what I do at the end of the sequence is I ask anybody to send stuff back so students can kind of see that you can be successful. And so this is a letter that I got from a student who went to OIT. And they're in the radiology program that's there. And so, I'm going to give you a second. Can you guys see that? And so they just talk about some of the frustrations that, you sometimes have with A&P, but he's also encouraging you. He says having a good understanding of physiology is just as important as the managing part. And OIT never requires each student to take that, but even requires them to take these two classes, which means you have to know all that physiology stuff. So this person is just basically saying study hard, and if you do, you'll really be prepared for the program that you're going into. And this person has actually a job.